Soft, eerie piano fades in. The sound of kids laughing in the distance. Then, silence. Atlanta, Georgia, 1979. The air was thick with summer heat and the scent of rain-soaked pavement. Children raced down cracked sidewalks, their laughter echoing through neighborhoods filled with soul music, church bells, and Sunday barbecues. But that year, something dark slipped quietly into the city, something that would change everything. At first, no one noticed. Not the mothers, not the police, not even the local news. It started like a whisper, soft and forgettable. A young boy named Edward Hope Smith, just 12 years old, went out one evening to play with his best friend. He never came back. The vanishing. Edward's mother waited on the porch until midnight, rocking back and forth, hoping to see his small frame running up the street. But the night grew long. The cicadas hummed. And the only thing that returned was the sound of her own heart breaking. 2 days later, Edward's body was found near a wooded area. The police said it might have been a hit and run. They didn't look too closely. A week passed. Then another boy, Alfred Evans, 13, disappeared. Same area. Same story. Same silence. 2 boys gone from the same neighborhood. 2 families drowning in grief. Still no one said the word murder. The city sleeps, the darkness grows. By the time fall arrived, more children had vanished. 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, mostly black, mostly from working-class neighborhoods. They'd leave home for the store, for school, for a friend's house, and vanish into thin air. The police didn't connect the dots, or maybe they didn't want to. To them, these were runaways, street kids, troublemakers. But the mothers knew better. They felt it in their bones, something was hunting their children. At night, they would meet in each other's homes, clutching photos and praying out loud. One mother said she kept her shoes by the door, in case she got a call in the middle of the night to come identify a body. That's how common it had become. Atlanta, a city once filled with gospel choirs and jazz clubs, had turned into a place where every mother feared her child's laughter might be the last sound she'd ever hear from them. The pattern of terror. By 1980, the number of missing children reached double digits. Newspapers began using a chilling headline, "The Atlanta Child Murders." But for the families, it wasn't a headline, it was a nightmare they couldn't wake from. The victims were always young. Always vulnerable. Always found near rivers, woods, or abandoned lots. Some were strangled. Some simply vanished, never found at all. And yet, there were no witnesses. No fingerprints. No leads. Just silence. The police tried roadblocks. They interviewed hundreds. But the killer, or killers, stayed one step ahead. Then came the phone calls. Anonymous voices whispering to families, saying things like, "I saw your boy," or, "You'll never find her." Most were cruel hoaxes, but some felt real. Real enough to make mothers wake up screaming at night. The city cracks. As months turned into years, the entire city began to crumble under fear. Parents escorted their children everywhere, to school, to church, even to the mailbox. Streetlights flickered on before sunset. And curfews were enforced not by the police but by the parents themselves. Atlanta had become a ghost town after dark. The air, once filled with the sounds of community, now carried only the low hum of sirens and the whisper of unanswered prayers. The mayor tried to calm the city. He appeared on TV saying, "We are doing everything we can." But the people didn't believe it anymore. Because every few weeks, another body appeared. Another name added to the list. And deep down, everyone feared the same thing. This wasn't random. This was deliberate. And whoever was doing it, was enjoying it. The Mother's March. By 1981, 28 children and young adults had vanished or been found dead. 28. That's when the mothers decided enough was enough. They organized marches. They demanded answers. They held up photos of their lost children and shouted into cameras, "These were our babies." Churches filled with mourners every weekend. Reporters from across the country flooded Atlanta. The nation was finally watching, but the killer didn't stop. Even with FBI agents swarming the city, even with detectives patrolling the streets, the disappearances continued like clockwork. Atlanta wasn't just scared anymore. It was broken. The stranger in the night. And then, something strange happened. A police officer, patrolling late one night near a bridge over the Chattahoochee River, heard a splash. A car was driving away slowly. He stopped it. Behind the wheel was a young man named Wayne Williams, a local talent scout who claimed he was on his way to meet a client. He was calm. Too calm. And his story didn't quite fit. Days later, the body of another young man was found downstream, right near that same bridge. The FBI started watching Wayne. They followed him everywhere. And slowly, piece by piece, they began connecting the dots. Fibers from his car, from his home, from his dog, they matched the victims. He fit the pattern. He lived near the neighborhoods. He drove the same routes. He had no solid alibi. And most chilling of all, he didn't seem surprised that the police were watching him. The arrest. On June 21, 1981, Wayne Williams was arrested. He smiled for the cameras. Said he was innocent. Said the police were desperate to find anyone to blame. But as the evidence piled up, so did the doubt. Could one man really be responsible for so many lives lost? Or was he just a piece of something bigger, a cover for a truth too dark to face? The city wanted closure. The families wanted peace. And so, when the trial began, Atlanta held its breath. Soft music fades in, a lonely piano melody. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Guilty. 2 counts of murder. Life in prison. The press called it justice. The mayor called it victory. But for many mothers, it didn't feel like either. Because not all the children were found. Not all the questions were answered. And not everyone believed Wayne Williams was the monster in the dark. Pause. Distant thunder rolls. That's the thing about evil, it doesn't always end when the court says it does. Sometimes, it hides. It waits. Remembers. And in Atlanta, the darkness still lingered. Music fades to silence. Slow haunting strings fade in. The sound of rain tapping against a window. Atlanta, 1981. The trial was over. The monster had a name, Wayne Bertram Williams. And for the first time in 2 years the city exhaled. But it wasn't a sigh of relief. It was exhaustion. Too many funerals. Too many empty chairs at dinner tables. Too many questions that the verdict couldn't answer. A city still in shadows. The headlines said justice served. The cameras packed up and left. The mayor promised peace was coming back to Atlanta. But in the neighborhoods where the children once played, peace never came. Mothers still left porch lights burning all night. Fathers still stared out windows long after midnight. And every time the wind howled through the streets, people swore they could still hear the voices of the missing, faint, distant, calling for home. Because even though Wayne Williams was behind bars, the killings had stopped too perfectly. As if someone wanted it that way. The doubt creeps in. In the years that followed, something strange began to happen. Detectives started whispering among themselves, some saying the evidence wasn't airtight. The fibers, the dog hairs, the timelines, they fit just enough. But not completely. And then the families began to speak up. Some mothers refused to believe Williams did it. They'd seen suspicious cars long before he was arrested. They'd gotten calls, letters, even threats. But none of it pointed to him. One mother said they needed a face for the cameras. And Wayne Williams was that face. Others said it didn't matter, guilty or not, their babies were gone. And nothing could bring them back. Visual, candlelight flickering in a small church, mothers holding photographs. The media storm. The media called Wayne Williams the Atlanta Monster. TV anchors recited the story like a script. A loner. A killer. A predator hiding in plain sight. But behind that story were holes. For one, Williams was convicted of just 2 murders. Both of adults, not children. And while authorities closed the rest of the cases, officially tying them to him, he was never tried for them. 26 children, silenced without a trial. It was neat. Plain. Convenient. Too convenient. And as the years passed, the whispers grew louder. Maybe the real truth was buried deeper. Maybe the monster had help. Or maybe, just maybe, he was never the monster at all. The fear that stayed. By 1983, Atlanta tried to move on. The city rebuilt its image, repainted its streets, and tried to cover the scars. But fear has a way of sticking to a place, like smoke in old walls. Children who survived those years grew up differently. They learned early that safety was an illusion. That evil doesn't always hide in dark alleys. Sometimes it drives the same streets you do. Some still remember the sound of their mothers locking doors 3 times before bed. Some remember the police sirens echoing every night. And some still wake up at 3 a.m. hearing footsteps that aren't really there. Because when an entire city lives in fear, that fear becomes part of its DNA. New evidence, old wounds. Decades passed. The case faded from headlines, until 2019, when Atlanta's mayor announced something shocking. The investigation was being reopened. DNA technology had come a long way. New tools, new hope, new possibilities. Detectives began testing old evidence, hair, fibers, even clothing from the victims. The families gathered once again, older now, faces marked with years of grief. Some wanted closure. Others just wanted the truth, whatever it was. But as of today, no new answers have come. The same silence remains. The same shadows hang over the city. The man behind bars. Wayne Williams has never confessed. Not once. He still says he's innocent. In interviews he speaks calmly, almost casually, like a man who's grown used to the walls around him. He says the FBI framed him. That they needed to end the panic and he was the easiest target. And though most people believe he's guilty, there's always that one question hanging in the air. If Wayne Williams didn't do it, then who did? Pause. Ominous sound builds softly in the background. The haunting legacy. Today when you drive through Atlanta, you won't see much that reminds you of those years. The city is brighter, busier, louder, skyscrapers reaching high above the same neighborhoods where the children once vanished. But if you stop long enough, you can still feel it. The heaviness in the air. The weight of what happened. Some say they've seen things, small figures at the edge of the woods, laughter echoing from empty playgrounds. Maybe it's superstition. Or maybe it's something else. Because pain leaves traces, and the city of Atlanta carries the memory of its missing children like a scar that will never fully fade. A nation's reflection. The case didn't just change Atlanta, it changed America. It forced the country to see what it had ignored for too long. The victims weren't from wealthy suburbs. They were poor. They were black. And for nearly 2 years, no one outside their neighborhoods cared enough to help. It was only when the numbers grew, when the bodies piled up, that the nation finally looked. And that's the real tragedy. Not just the children who were lost, but how long it took for anyone to notice they were gone. Soft piano enters, somber and slow. The final truth. It's been over 40 years since Atlanta's children were taken. Most of their families are gone now, but the pain lives on in the next generation, in the stories passed down, in the warnings whispered at bedtime. The case remains one of America's darkest unsolved mysteries. A riddle of justice and injustice. A wound that time refuses to close. Every so often, someone reopens the files. Every so often, someone says they found something new. But the truth? The truth is still missing, just like the children. Long pause. Wind howling softly in the distance. Epilogue, the light that never died. At night, if you drive through southwest Atlanta, you'll see them, the porch lights. Still burning. Still waiting. Each one is a promise. A small, flickering flame against the dark. A reminder that even when the world forgets, a mother's love never does. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the city still whispers their names. Because the missing children of Atlanta were more than victims. They were voices, dreams, lives that mattered. And their story, this story, is one the world must never forget. Music swells. Fade to black. Title appears on screen, The Missing Children of Atlanta, a case that shook America.